Welcome to a bit about the Voorhees family, part two. If you haven't heard the first part that I put together last year, you can find it on the homepage of VoorheesFamilyArt.com. Our parents, Millie and Ed, were artists and loved to paint. While Ed was able to study painting at night at the Art Students League while working in New York City, Millie was at home taking care of us kids. So it was later in her life that Millie was able to realize her dream of being a painter. In the early 60s, Ed was offered a prestigious promotion that would have him traveling the world, but instead of accepting the new position, Millie and Ed spent long hours discussing what they really wanted for themselves and the family, and decided instead to step out of that lifestyle and choose a different path, one that was decidedly more risky financially but would prove to be more satisfying. They moved the family from New Jersey to the coast of North Carolina to run a small gift shop on the waterfront in Morehead City. There, Ed was finally able to devote time to painting as well. They left a more secure lifestyle to follow their dream. Millie would get asked, "How do you raise creative kids?" "You have to be willing to have a messy house," she'd say. We get asked, "What was it like to grow up in a creative family?" Well, it showed up in the everyday things. It wasn't just about our parents being artists, it was their approach to life. Creativity takes many forms. For Millie, it was in the everyday things. It was sewing Halloween costumes for all of us, along with Cousin Jane. We kids would start weeks in advance deciding what we wanted by perusing the World Book Encyclopedia under costume to choose an outfit. And then Millie and Cousin Jane would sew and glue and do whatever was necessary to create them. We were pilgrims, jesters, knights. Anything we desired to be became possible. For Millie, creativity took the form of preparing good food for family and friends. Gathering around the table was important, and trying different foods was important. Millie loved to explore new recipes to try on us. Whether she prepared moussaka or coq au vin, we were expected to eat it, saying, "You need to try this. Otherwise, what will you eat when we travel around the world?" For Millie, creativity took the form of entertaining. The large screened-in porch overlooking Bogue Sound was the central gathering place for friends and family in the warm summer months. She loved to entertain in a casual, comfortable way that made all feel welcome. For Millie, creativity took the form of knitting six, yes, six, Icelandic sweaters for all of us one Christmas. She was able to knit without even looking at her knitting. She must have been knitting every free moment to have completed all of those that year. For Millie, it was sewing our clothes and then teaching Susan and I how to sew as well. Every late summer, we had a tradition of driving to the closest material store an hour away to find patterns and fabric for new clothes for the start of the school year. Returning home, we would immediately take over the dining room table, cut out fabric, set up the Singer sewing machine, and start our projects, creating a scene of total mess and chaos. Creativity takes many forms. For Ed, creativity took the form of fixing up every house we ever lived in. Saturday mornings, we would wake to the sound of his power saw or the noise of some other project he was working on. He could fix anything, and he did. The plumbing, the electric, the construction, even the deconstruction as well. He designed and constructed the brick wall on the front of the house, built his art studio, built the brick patio off the kitchen from reclaimed bricks, and constructed the displays at the shop. Some of the projects would go on unfinished for years and most always involved the help of the boys in the family. The house in Morehead City that they bought on a whim in the 1960s was a big old rambling house that needed lots of repairs. There have been lots of changes to it over the years, many that Ed made, and this is how it looks today on the right. For Ed, creativity took the form of converting our school bus for the trip to California in the early 60s. He designed and built the interior of our school bus in just 2 weeks. He created beds and living space for all 8 of us with Army surplus supplies. A dining table at the front of the bus folded down to make a bed for Millie and Ed, and the back of the bus included kitchen cabinets that he built, complete with a pump sink, Coleman stove, and storage for food and dishes. For Millie and Ed, creativity took the form of merchandising and working at our gift shop, DG's. It was a huge part of our everyday lives. All of us got involved with decorating the shop, and all of us would work there as well. The shop was located on the waterfront, on pilings over the water. When there was threat of a hurricane, Ed would have to uncover holes that were in the floor so that the rising water would come into the shop instead of taking the building away. And all of the merchandise would have to be moved to higher ground to keep it dry. So when a space across the street became available to rent, Ed and Millie took it. They then had a higher location to move the contents of the shop to. This also became the beginning of our other shop, the Second Glance. While the main shop was open year-round, the Second Glance was open only in the summers and would focus on whatever was hip that year. The secondary function of the seasonal shop was really to have a place that would employ us kids, and to have it stocked with something that we found interesting. Every year we'd be faced with designing the interior of the store to reflect the theme of that year. One year it was posters in a blacklight room outfitted with beanbag chairs. Another year it was a boutique specializing in peasant clothing. It was like a stage set that we got to design. Based on whatever Ed and Millie had found to stock the store with on their buying trips, we would paint and arrange it like a new space each year. For all of us, creativity took the form in having a place to create, like Ed's big art studio. His studio became a place for all of us to use for making things. And the studio had supplies for just about any project. Whether it was for printmaking or painting or something requiring a bit of mylar, what was needed could be found in that studio. That studio and the supplies in it supported all of us in our creating. We could explore and experiment with just about any art medium we wanted to. Millie always said that you must be willing to put up with a mess for creativity to happen. Our folks let us do that. Not only did they live creative lives, but they supported all of us in exploring our own creativity. They nurtured the creative spirit in each one of us, and in doing so allowed us to become the artists that we are. That is the gift that they gave us, and we are all forever grateful.